Okay, I'd like to welcome everyone to our regular town board meeting this Thursday, February 19th, 2015. And I'd like to ask our clerk, Christian Sampson, to call the roll. Please.
Councilman Deputy Supervisor Withers, Councilman Ullman, Councilman Friedman here, Councilman Charles, Supervisor St. Lawrence.
Here, I'd like to ask Councilman Friedman to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The first item on the agenda today is police matters. So, Chief Peter Brower, it's all yours.
Thank you and good morning. Normally we start off with some of our statistics. We compare this month to the same month of last year, but what we're going to do today is a little different. I have our statistics for the entire year of 2013 and we'll compare them to 2014. I'm going to have Blaine Howe come up shortly and give you those statistics and he'll discuss them thoroughly. But if we just go out of order momentarily, I'd like to talk to you a little bit about some of the community events that we attended for the past month or so. As the board's aware, we've designed, with your support and your involvement, a senior citizen scam pamphlet. And I have to tell you that it's been well received. The district attorney and myself have gone out to many of our seniors clubs. Incidentally, as you're aware, there's probably approximately 20 in the town, very active. I am older than most of them, so I feel very comfortable being in that environment. And they feel very comfortable with that pamphlet. As a matter of fact, we went to Airmont Garden Seniors, Torn Valley Seniors. We went to the Senior Center at Clark Center. And I have to tell you, Mr. Supervisor, it's very rewarding when some of the seniors come up and say, you know, Chief, I want to thank you for the presentation. A couple of weeks ago, I received a phone call with the IRS scam. So I go there with the district attorney. We both feel very gratified that perhaps we are sending a message out to our seniors and that we are preventing some seniors from losing a considerable amount of money. I do give them some reports. We had a report on January 15th. One of our seniors lost over $15,000 to the IRS scam. So they received that pamphlet. They receive our message. We are continuing to go. We have probably another 7 to 10. And I go there with the district attorney, and we're going to follow up with Omar. So I think the message is received, and I think it's money well spent, and I want to thank you for that initiative. It really shows some leadership on this board's part. I understand that Sergeant Howell is here now, so I just want to mention one or two other things on the community events. Last night I went up to Sloatsburg Fire Department and gave them a PowerPoint presentation on our active shooting training. We are anticipating all our first responders receiving that training. It's really a two-part training exercise. One is a PowerPoint exercise that we present at their locations, either at the firehouses or at the ambulance corps. And then short time thereafter, within 2 or 3 weeks, we have an actual practical drill that's held at different schools throughout our township. And we did it up in Suffern. We did it at Connors School, and it was well received. We had our first PowerPoint presentation at Sloatsburg Firehouse, and we're going to do some active shooting training drills probably towards the end of the month. And then we're going to invite Emergency Services New Square, Emergency Service, and Hatsola to share with that training exercise. And so I think probably it'll take about 2 or 3 months, and we'll have the entire town, all our first responders trained in our active shooting drills, much the same as we train our police officers. So I think that's going to be a large undertaking, but worthwhile exercise.
Chief, I attended one of your active training sessions that you had at Pomona Elementary School or Middle School on Pomona Road, and it's very intense. It's very, very professional, and I think we were even training some other departments at the time. and myself and Deputy Supervisor Withers witnessed or observed the training, and it was very incredible. So I want to thank you and the force for this initiative.
All right, before I turn it over, I also want to mention that we went down to St. Joseph's Youth Group, and I was there with Sheriff Falco and representative from the Spring Valley Police Department. I see Cassandra Edwards was there, and I think it was worthwhile, and we're going to encourage perhaps another meeting. That particular night, a lot of the students had another commitment, so we didn't reach as many as we can, so we are encouraging them to sponsor another night, and I think it was a pretty healthy dialogue. So with that in mind, what I'd like to do is ask Sergeant Howell to
Absolutely.
give us a presentation. I believe he has given the board the statistics, and he could go over it, and if you have any questions, the sergeant will be glad to respond to you.
Thank you, Chief. Good morning.
Good morning, Sergeant.
If you'd like to open up the first page of the binder, I'm going to go through each page by page. Sometimes I get a little quick. If you have any questions, please stop me, ask whatever you like, and I'll answer it as best I can. The first page of the report breaks down the stats from 2013 to 2014. It's a comparison. The first section is the incidents that the police department took, and we took 52,275 incidents this year compared to 50,278 last year. That's broken out of blotters and cases, and that's how you get that total number. The next section is the accidents. That's broken out into property damage, accidents with injuries, fatals that include pedestrians, pedestrians that aren't fatalities, and then police vehicle-involved accidents. We have the false alarms, fire alarms, and burglar alarms. Those have gone down a little bit. The 9/11 hang-ups, actually up a little bit. Community service reports stays about the same. And the next section is a breakdown of the crimes within the town. We have the burglaries are at 93, which is down from last year. Larcenies is 592, which is up slightly. Assaults, which are up slightly. Criminal mischief, up slightly. Robberies, up slightly. Sex crimes, down. And homicides are down at 0, which is always a good thing. Uniform traffic tickets are about the same, slightly higher this year than last year. Then it's broken down by cell phone, school bus, and seatbelts, which are some of the things that we focus on. We put a little extra effort and emphasis on those. And those are all in the same general area. Parking tickets are up by about 600 this year. And then we have the arrests. Arrests were up by about 200, just under 200. And that's broken down by felony, misdemeanors, violations, warrants, and juvenile arrests. And then you have the DWIs, or felonies, misdemeanors, and DWIs involving drugs.
The DWI felonies is up tremendously.
Yes. There was a large jump in that number. And the misdemeanors is down by about 20.
But those numbers could really are sort of different from the others because they're not necessarily involving Ramapo residents. It's people who are driving.
No, they're not necessarily. None of the. Well, that would go for all of the
everything.
uniform traffic tickets, the arrests. Those aren't necessarily Ramapo residents that were arrested. No, these are just crimes that occurred within the town that the Ramapo Police Department responded to and made an arrest on or issued a summons or so on and so forth. But no, that does not at all reflect upon the residents of the town of Ramapo.
Nor do any of the numbers, because people commit crimes that come into our community, commit crimes
Absolutely.
from outside.
These are just
Absolutely.
the total number of arrests made by the department,
Yeah.
okay? And they would include anybody that was arrested, regardless of their address.
You can make the same statement for accidents. Just because the accident occurred within the town does not mean that the drivers were residents of the town. They could be just driving through the town. So none of those numbers at all reflect on the town itself. If there's no questions, I'll move on to the next section, which is the request for service activity. And these numbers are usually generated out of the Patrol Services Office, which I'm in charge of. This is a breakdown of events. It doesn't include 100% of the events that take place in the town, but it's a very good representation of what does take place in the town. And the majority of these are generated from my office. And this breaks it down by the first column is number of events, and you can go to different villages. The next column will be the number of supervisors that have been assigned to those events, how many hours those supervisors put in throughout the year, then the number of officers that were assigned throughout the year, the amount of hours, police officer hours that were spent on these events, total hours, then the next one would be the overtime hours for each event. TDY is not something to be really concerned with, and the auxiliary department, how many hours they gave us for each village throughout the year. So you have all those columns, and they correspond to different villages throughout the town. And at the bottom, you have the grand total, so you can compare the last 3 years. The grand total this year is slightly lower than the past year. We've had a steady increase up until this year. As you can see, 2012 was 435. Last year's 2013 was 448, and then 2014 we were down to 418. That could be from a variety of different factors, but it's been a general increase over the years, last several years. Moving on to the next page is an actual list of what these events were, and this is divvied up by area. So the first page is the unincorporated town of Ramapo. And if you look along the events, anything that has an asterisk next to it is something that incurred overtime, but the town would be reimbursed for that. So, for instance, if a film company calls us and they'd like to do a movie shoot somewhere, they will pay us for the officers that are assigned to traffic for that, those assistants. So anything like that is marked with an asterisk, so we can see that event we were reimbursed for. I'll just quickly go through this. I don't know if there's anything in particular you want to talk about in here, you can let me know, but this is, like I said, just a breakdown of the events in each area of the town, and starting with Airmont and going on, so on and so forth. On the next page, you would have Chestnut Ridge and Hillburn, the village of Kaiser, after Kaiser is the area of Muncie, next would be the village of Montebello. I should note that not all the requests actually come from the village officers themselves. Some of them do, many of them do. Some of them would be a resident calling, they're having something going on, they're having an example would be a tour procession. We would help them with the traffic for that. Someone may be having an event, there might be a big party going on somewhere, we'll help them with that. A lot of the requests do come from the villages, but some of them also come from private citizens.
Or school districts, like the homecoming
Schools-
dance or something like that.
Schools, the homecoming dance, Viola School, when they have their concerts and things like that, they usually ask us for a little help. Sometimes the parents have to cross 202. And we'll go down and we'll set it, if we can, we'll have an officer down there to help them safely cross back and forth from the school. There's a New Square in Pomona, the village of Sloatsburg, Wesley Hills, and then things, Suffern, Spring Valley, and county. Like the county would be RCC, the fireworks would be on there, the fishing show would be on there. After that, you have the overtime report for the request of service. What that is, anything that incurred overtime of any sort would go on this page, and again, anything with an asterisk we were reimbursed for. The second page of that is where all the totals would be. As you can see, this year the total amount of overtime was actually down a little bit, as opposed to 777.5 hours, as opposed to 992 the previous year. Anyone have any questions on that?
Can I actually back on the first page?
Absolutely. The first page of the report, all the way back to the beginning?
Yeah, just,
Absolutely.
could you explain to me what blotter, case, and pre-impact is on time?
Yes, I can.
You want to go back to the very first sentence, the very first line of the very first page.
Not a problem at all. I was actually wondering if someone was going to ask that. As I'm sure you're aware, the department uses a computer program now for all our reporting. There's no more or very few handwritten reports. Everything's done on the computer, and that's called Impact, that program Impact. So in 2013, in the very beginning of the year, we weren't fully into the Impact system, so there were still some pre-Impact reports that had been taken. That's what the pre-Impact line is there. So in 2014, we no longer have pre-Impact reports. We're fully 100% computerized. All the reports are taken on the computer, and it's all in the Impact system. So that was included just so we could kind of show that there were some other reports taken that year. The difference between a blotter and a case, anything that the police officer reports on will take a blotter. Always gets a blotter. If it's a crime of some sort, a case is opened up. So only in a circumstance where it's a case, doesn't have to be an arrest, just a crime was committed that could possibly lead to an arrest, a case will be opened up, and that's the difference there. I don't know if I answered that well enough for you. Okay?
And that impact was something the board voted on and put in, I guess it was about 18 months ago or thereabouts?
Yeah, it was.
Right.
It started, I guess, beginning of 2013. Now we're fully up and running, and
And it's been a great tool for the
an excellent tool.
department. And we even met with Detective Lieutenant Emma and Detective Flynn. We met and went over a new possibility, had a presentation, and at some point we'll talk about that.
if there's no questions about the overtime report, I will move along to the next page, which is a breakdown of the pedestrian accidents, which you spoke about on the first page. Each accident that involves a pedestrian is logged here, and we can look at the road conditions, the weather conditions, the age and the sex of the driver, whether it was a driver error, pedestrian error, whether it was in an intersection, if the street was lit, the day, the time of day, and it breaks it all down for us so we can take a look and we can see if there's any factors that we could address.
And when it comes to that, we'll just want to mention too that we're in the process of looking at doing some traffic calming. Is Tony Sharon's not here, but we went out and met, and Councilman Ullman as well on Muncie Boulevard and Maple, and doing some better lights and some things on the road crossing, and some things to calm the traffic down and also have better lighting, and even some railings that will force people to not jaywalk in that area. We had another person that was hit in Muncie Boulevard the other night. So it's important that we'll be on that right when the spring comes. So go ahead. Okay, sorry.
Okay. The number of pedestrians, it's kind of stayed steady over the last several years. It varies between 50 to 60 per year, which obviously any number of pedestrians being struck is too much. I know the chief is with me when I say that we're going to do our best to try and reduce that number. Officer Lane has put together a pedestrian safety program that we started implementing the fall of last year. We're going to go ahead and do it some more in the spring. We're going to get out there a little more, and that is to advise drivers that they have to stop for pedestrians in the crosswalk. And the way that program works, I don't know if you're familiar with it, is we'll have someone in plain clothes out there attempt to cross the street in a crosswalk. We'll have a cone set up down the roadway. Based on the speed limit of that road, we put a cone a certain amount of feet down the roadway, and we know that if you're going the speed limit and you're at or before that cone, we know that you should be able to stop your car. So if you can't stop it for pedestrian in the crosswalk, you're speeding. And if you either that or you just don't stop for the pedestrian in the crosswalk. If they fail to stop for the undercover officer in the crosswalk, they will be pulled over a short distance down the roadway by a marked uniformed patrolman in a marked car, and they'll be issued, at this point, we're issuing literature, information about the rules of the road and pedestrians and crosswalks and your responsibility as a driver. We're going to issue, the reason we're doing the information portion of it right now is that's a law that historically really hasn't been enforced that much, and we felt that it was a little unfair to go out and just start hammering people one day and write 50 or 60 people for failing to stop at a crosswalk. We just thought it would look bad, and we didn't want it to make it seem like it's a ticket writing scheme or anything like that. We wanted, because our goal is to keep the pedestrians and the motorists safe. So that's what we decided to hand out this literature first, and the enforcement phase will come later. And the people are told, you know, this is you're getting a warning today, you're getting information today, but in the future you will receive a summons. We're also going to try and reach out to more pedestrians. A lot of these accidents are pedestrian error, crossing at places other than a crosswalk on a dark street. You cross in the middle of the road when there's a crosswalk down, 200 yards down the way. So we're really going to make an effort to reduce those accidents here. It's a goal of our unit to try and get that done, and Officer Lane is spearheading that effort right now. To get back on track, so these are all the accidents that took place involving pedestrians in the town this year, in 2014. There's a breakdown of them on the last page of that. There's a little bar graph there, and it has from 2008 to 2014 the number of accidents involving pedestrians and the number of fatalities. And you can see the graph, and it goes, it's been fairly steady over the last several years. But again, anything is too much, so. The next page is pedestrian safety program. That again is Officer Lane, along with our Adopt-A-Cop officers, going out and giving lessons on bicycle safety, pedestrian safety, how to properly cross a street in a safe manner. And you can see that In 2014, we instructed over 4,000 children on how to properly navigate the streets, either on foot or on their bicycles. And that's, again, a combination of our Adopt-A-Cop program and Officer Lane as his position as a CPOP officer, the community policing officer. And you can compare the numbers from the last few years. The next page is a breakdown of traffic tickets issued by the patrol services officers, mostly the traffic safety officers. As you can see, the three of them issued about 2,500 tickets this year, and there's a breakdown of how much time they spent in certain areas, the amount of tickets in certain areas, and there's a pie chart down below that breaks it down. A goal of mine this year is to more equitably spread out where the tickets are. There's some areas received more than others. We're going to try and make that a little more even, spread it out a little bit, pay a little more attention to some other areas. Something that's a goal of mine, I'm going to pay attention to that, make sure that happens. Does anyone have any questions so far? Anything I can answer for you?
No, it's good.
Okay. The next page is our speed monitoring trailers. We currently have two. I believe there's two more that are being, if they have not already been ordered, they're going to be ordered. We're going to have two brand new speed trailers that are going to have the capability of putting electronic messages out, so we can use them for other events, such as the fireworks, or if we have an accident that we know is going to keep a road closed for a long period of time, we can use one of those trailers to put up a detour sign. I believe it's also going to have the capability of dialing up and getting information from that. I don't have all the details yet, so I don't want to get too far into it, but we do have two brand new trailers coming in, and we're excited about that. And again, we're going to try and make sure that everyone gets their fair share of time with these trailers. People really like to see them when they call my office. A lot of times they say, hey, can I get that speed trailer down here? You know, people are speeding up and down my road all day. Could you guys put that speed trailer out? I've constantly got requests, so it'll be nice to have a couple more of them out there. They'll definitely get used. And again, we're going to try and make that a little more equitable also this year. But it was out, as you can see, it was out for over 10,000 hours this year. Right now, they're sitting in the back, staying safe so they don't get hit by plows in this weather. We don't like to, we try to keep them here when we know there's bad weather coming because we don't want to get them buried. They're not doing any good then. The next page is our sector conditions. These are things that we've determined are chronic problems throughout the town, either by the amount of tickets issued or chronic complaints. And this information is given to me by the patrol squads. They report to me every 4 months. And it's broken down by the January through April, May through August, and September through December, the amount of sessions the officers spent there, number of hours they spent there, number of tickets that were issued, and the number of warnings that were issued. And that's broken down. This whole thing is divided up by area, sectors. Sector 1, Sector 2, 3, all the way through 10.
And obviously, a lot of that is speeding, and
lot of
when you
speeding.
say traditional areas, there's certain roadways where people are speeding.
Certain roadways where it's a constant problem. We can sit out there every day, and we'll probably write tickets every day. This list also gets added to, and things can become off it also. If we determine that it's not a problem, no longer a problem, it'll come off the list. It could be things like loitering, too. It doesn't have to be just V&T complaints. We could have an area where people say, hey, listen, there's kids hanging out and drinking at this cul-de-sac, and that could be a chronic problem, and that could go on this list. But a lot of it is V&T complaints. So again, that's broken down by sectors, the patrol areas of the town. And the last page has town-wide conditions such as cell phone violations and school bus violations.
So the cell phones, I think, was up again this year, wasn't it? Just looking here, it didn't give the comparison. I know it did in the back.
Cell phones was actually down just a little bit.
Like 600 and something?
Right. Last year, 2013 was 677. 2014 was 626. The school bus tickets, which is another focus of ours, is actually up. They were 93 in 2013 and 101 in 2014. And, you know, the other one would be seatbelt tickets, another thing that we look at, we try and enforce. The next page would be the commercial vehicle enforcement. We have several members of my office who are on the traffic safety unit who are commercial vehicle certified. They work closely with the New York State Department of Transportation. They set up road checks and they inspect commercial vehicles. They'll spend a day doing that. This year we had 6 commercial vehicle inspections. We had a few canceled due to weather. The DOT canceled us one day, and one day it was just the weather was too bad, they couldn't do it. We aim for between 6 and 10 every year. We do them at various spots throughout the town. There's a few listed here. And the results of it, we had 120 trucks were inspected, 258 commercial vehicle enforcement traffic tickets were issued, 47 trucks were taken out of service, which means that their violations were such that their truck was not safe to be on the road, and they're taken out of service by the Department of Transportation. That's something that they do. They put a big sticker on it, out of service, and it can't be moved unless it's towed until the violation is corrected. We spent 136 manpower hours there, and it doesn't incur any overtime. The officers do that while they're working. It's their tour duty for the day. We also do one detail with the Zone 4 counterterrorism. They do that. They go down to exit 14 off the thruway, the Nanuet exit there. They set up there with the state police and all the other CVE officers throughout the county, and they do a commercial vehicle inspection to go along with the Zone 4 counterterrorism effort. We don't issue any summonses to that. We're just there to help inspect. It's out of our geographical area of employment. The next page is the Youth Academy for 2014. There were 2 sessions, the spring and the fall. The spring had 38 graduates, and the fall had 37. The students, as you know, are from Ramapo, Spring Valley, and Suffern High School. To date, there have been approximately 1,012 graduates, and during the calendar year, that should say 2015 at the bottom, we intend to hold 2 more sessions. We're currently in the first session right now. The next page, and I think I walked in on the chief talking about this a little bit, is our senior training initiative. We've always gone and spoken to the seniors to go to their meetings. We've really stepped it up this year. The chief, along with Officer O'Lane, have put together a very good booklet that's being handed out now. If you look at the list of training sessions, the ones with asterisks are times in which the booklet's already been handed out. There's been more handed out since then, but this really didn't come into effect full-fledged until December. We started putting it together. We had a copy back in October, but it really hasn't been finalized until December, and now it's in full effect. They're being handed out frequently, and we hope to continue that. And as you can see, we spoke to about 861 seniors this year to try and make them more aware of the scams that are targeted at them. The next page is a memo from Kathy McGrath, the dog control officer, and she just gives me her 2014 statistics. She impounded 64 dogs. 9 dogs remained in the custody of the animal shelter at the end of the year. 43 dogs were redeemed by their owners. 9 were adopted to new owners. 3 dogs are humanely euthanized. The adoption return rate was 95%. The euthanasia rate was 5%. Ramapo accounted for 40 of the impounded dogs, Airmont 2, New Hempstead 5, Chestnut Ridge 3, Montebello 3, Pomona 4, Hilburn 2, Wesley Hills 5, and Sloatsburg 0. The very last page is a fairly new program. This is something the chief was really adamant about. He's a big backer of this. It's our school bus safety program. We've been going out and we're speaking to the school bus drivers in the town and giving them lessons on what is expected of them, to drive at a reasonable speed, no speeding. We don't want them to be on their cell phones, not using the horn necessarily. But another part of the program is that it gives them the opportunity to ask us questions and express to us their concerns. In 2013, we only got to about 151 of the drivers, and that's mostly for the public schools. This year, with the help of some of the community leaders, we were able to get a lot more drivers. We were able to get a lot of the private schools to let us come in and speak to their drivers. And you can see where we spoke to them. We had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different lectures. We had some at the Fire Training Center. We had a big event at the Atrium, where a lot of the private schools are there, and that's mostly Officer Olayan goes in and does that. He gives them a little bit of information about counterterrorism, things like that, things that they could be looking for, and he listens to their complaints, and they know that if they have a specific area where, hey, listen, you know, a guy keeps passing my school bus every day at the corner over here, they know they can reach out to him, and he'll get that information to me, and we'll get it out where it needs to go, and that something will be addressed. So they know that they have a pipeline now. If they have complaints, they have problems, they can come right to us, they can go right to Officer Olayan, and he can get the information out to where it needs to be. And again, we can let them know what's expected of them, that if they're stopped, they're not going to get a break because they're a school bus driver. More is expected of them. They're transporting our children back and forth to school. They should be held to a higher standard. They're a busload of kids. We don't want to see you texting. We don't want to see you on your cell phone. We don't want to see you driving recklessly. You need to obey the laws. So that's a program that that number of 650, that's the amount of drivers. We expect that to stay right around there. May go up a little bit, may go down a little bit, but we feel like we got the majority of the drivers that operate within the town. So that number hopefully won't go down. Maybe it'll even go up a little bit. That's all I have right now. If anyone has any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them.
It was very well done. It was a very concise and detailed report. So
Thank you. Thank you very much.
And thank you for your
Thank you.
service all year long.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a
Chief.
couple of comments, Mr. Supervisor. Number one, the old adage, do more with less, epitomizes what Sergeant Howell has done last year. He has reduced the overtime for over 200 hours. That's one, very impressive. But he's done that with less resources. We had one of our officers retire early 14. So he was without one officer for the entire year, yet he has done the job that he's done. Second thing I'd like to comment on is that when you think about inspecting 258 trucks and 47 were taken out of service, that's like 20% of the trucks on the road are unsafe to be there. So we can continue to be vigilant and try to get as many of these road checks as physically possible for 2015. The other issue I wanted to comment on, I'd like to, it's really number 4, but it ties into what Sergeant Howell has talked about, is I'd like to mention Catherine McGrath. She's our door control officer. We have a municipal shelter inspection report. It was done November of this 14, and we received a satisfactory report. That's in your handout, and it says here the consistent good results are in part to the knowledge and diligence of Kathy McGrath, our door control officer. So many times, although she's invisible to the average citizen, she's out there every day. She's very supportive of our police officers, very knowledgeable, and I think she deserves a lot of credit for all the efforts that she's done throughout the year. Those are my comments. as it
Chief,
relates- yes.
I know that you've been working with our building department. I see we have several people from our building department here, and I didn't know if they had other things that they, places they had to go to. So maybe could you just jump out of order for this request for an injunction? Yes, sir. Tony? Thank you, Chief.
Yes, sir.
No, this
Yes, sir.
this way the fire inspectors
Good.
and building inspectors seen. Why don't you guys just come over here so people at home, you've got 3 chairs there, just sit there real quick. Use that mic, Tony, and that way people at home can... Thank you, Chief, for letting me take this out
No
of order.
problem, sir.
Mr. Supervisor, yesterday, a little bit of an important matter came up to my attention from Peter Muzzy and Adam Peltz regarding a property at 28 East Hickory Street. An unsafe situation is happening at that address, seems to have been happening for quite some time, and I'm asking for your help to get an injunction to remove the tenants from what appears to be a rooming house or boarding house. And according to and I brought Peter and Adam in so that they were actually at the house, I was not, so if you had any questions or concerns about should we be going for it, it's my opinion we should be going for an injunction to remove the people from this unsafe situation.
Absolutely. Peter, did you want to say anything in particular?
Yes, we received a complaint concerning the address from the police department last Friday, the 13th. Myself and Adam, the fire inspector, responding to the complaint, was observed that the basement of the building was being occupied as a rooming house. There's several rooms, single room occupancies, being occupied as single room occupancies. We did see exposed wires downstairs. The work creating these rooms was not done in a workmanlike fashion. In fact, there's regarding secondary means of egress to one of these rooms to be occupied as half of the space, there was none. Okay. In addition, during our inspection, we did not observe any smoke detectors downstairs or carbon monoxide detectors.
And I see you gave multiple tickets here on violations, and
Total of 10 counts.
you filed those 10 counts, but now you want to have us take the initiative now of getting an immediate injunction from occupants buying this. Michael?
Yes, it's been the policy of the town board that the building inspector reports an imminent risk of health and safety that not only to be prosecuted in justice court, but we simultaneously bring an injunction action in the Supreme Court. This is the appropriate incident for us to make that deal.
Okay, Councilman Ullman?
I second what Michael just said, but I just want to ask now, you heard Peter, could you be more specific as to the fire safety issues? Smoke detector and sealed lid are very important, but I don't think those are grounds to go to the Supreme Court to shut down
There are
someone's
fire
house.
safety concerns. The furnace is located within proximity in the basement to these dwelling units.
Okay, that's something more tangible. I noticed you mentioned about the egress, the 44 inches.
Yes, one of the rooms occupied as a bedroom by, I believe, 2 individuals, one of them being a child. There was a window, it was a standard basement window.
You gotta climb up.
You gotta climb up.
That to me is more substantial than a smoke detector or seal detector. Not to take away the importance of that, but that's an easy fix
There
versus.
was also numerous electrical violations that were observed, which pose a serious fire hazard to the occupants of the basement.
Both of them, yes. I think we should go to the Supreme Court.
I agree, and I want to thank our fire inspectors and building inspectors, because every time that there's if something's brought to your attention, either by the public or by our police department, you respond immediately. And having looked over the records to see that is exactly what you've done. So I'll take a motion to, oh, yes, Councilwoman Charles.
I'm just reading a narrative, and I just want to get clear in my mind as to how you came about the discovery in the illegal housing part of it. You were summoned there, a police officer summoned you there for safety issues, or because there was a narcotics problem?
No, the police officer, I believe, responded with the narcotics task force to that location. During his investigation, he did note some safety issues,
Okay.
as well as a child that was left alone. He contacted CPS as well concerning the child.
Right.
During our inspection, child was left alone in the one room as well.
Okay,
I
so,
don't mean to interrupt, I'm sorry, but if you're talking about the role of postal enforcement, relevant to
Absolutely.
Yes.
fire safety, that's a
Absolutely.
police matter with the
Absolutely.
Department of Social Services, you know. I just look at it from both points of view. I mean, there's a fire safety issue, is very important. I'm sorry, Brenda, I didn't mean to.
no, not at all.
And on the other point, I'm looking at it as someone, I don't know the exact situation, you need house and no income. But as a landlord, someone who has a house there to be kicked out of his house as well. So I'm trying to juggle both, the fire safety supersedes that. I'm sorry, Brenda.
So what I'm happy about is that everyone worked in concert well together, because of course, most of the time when we have these situations, the town is not aware of it. Our guys are not aware that there's any illegal activity, housing activity. And this is how oftentimes we uncover that there is illegal housing. Some situation occurs, and, you know, of course, it's a bonus. We find out that we have something going on here. So great job to, of course, the officers. You guys always on point, and I agree, we should move forward. It's good.
Our department has a very good relationship with the police department and work with them daily.
Fantastic. It's a motion then to, by Councilwoman Charles, second by Councilman Ullman. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries unanimously. Thank you very much. Thank you for your service. And be careful out there, it's cold.
Yes, thank you.
All right, Chief?
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. There are two other issues that I'd like to discuss with you. Both are budget requests for some training. Annually, this is number 2 on your agenda, annually we send our DARE officers, our SROs, to some training during the summertime. We like to do it again this summer. The cost will not exceed $10,680. They'll be trained on such topics as anti-bullying, internet safety, community anti-crime programs, crime prevention, and drug recognition. So the operating budget, 3120 Adam Boy 3465, which is our schools, training, and seminars line, is where we would take that money. And I would ask the board to make a resolution to approve of these 4 officers. Will be Officer Doldrell, Officer Donnelly, Officer Magaletta, and Sergeant Howe. The board's aware that Officer Magaletta is our newest DARE officer, and I've been to several of her graduations, which she orchestrated, and she's very well received, and she has assimilated into that role magnificently. So we're very happy with her addition to the program, and I think with further training, the program will only continue to excel.
Fantastic. Moved by Councilwoman Charles, second by Councilman Ullman. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? Carries unanimously.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. Item 3 on the agenda is a trip to Israel. It's going to be sponsored by the Rockland County Chiefs Association. I have volunteered to go, as well as the sheriff from Rockland County, Clarkstown Police Chief, and as well as the chief from Piermont. All the chiefs were invited. Unfortunately, many of them could not go. I would like to talk to you in executive session about some of the issues that we'll be discussing there, but certainly we recognize that that country has been victimized for thousands of years, and we are hoping to learn a lot about not only prevention, but what we do to the aftermath of any terrorism activity that they have experienced, and try to bring it back here so that we could educate our police officers, educate our first responders, and we recognize that our population is certainly vulnerable and a target of these terrorists, so we want to learn as much as we can to harden our targets.
Okay.
Once again, the budget line will be 3120 Adam Boy 3465. It's the school travel and seminar budget line, and that cost will not exceed $3,000.
Moved by Councilwoman Charles, seconded by Councilman Ullman. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? Carries unanimously.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. We already discussed number 4, which was the municipal shelter inspection report on our door control officer, Catherine McGrath. Once again, she does an outstanding job every day. I don't think she gets the recognition that she has certainly earned and deserved, and I would like to publicly recognize her for her efforts today. And other than that, if there's any public comments, Mr. Supervisor, or any comments that the board would like to make or would have us, if you so wish, and then I would also ask you if we could go into executive session to discuss a couple of issues after
Okay.
that.
So anybody in the public would like to speak? Come right up.
It's Robert Romanowski, 183 Maple Avenue, Muncie. I know you've spoken with the police matters today with tickets and everything. I know there's been issues with New York City about this. When a police officer goes out, is there any quota? Is there any number of tickets that an officer on a shift is required to write when they're out on a patrol? The second thing I'd like to know is, question I have is, the town put up some signs on Elm Street that makes Elm Street now one way. You have to go in on Franca Place. When you pull in on Franca Place now, there's signs still there that say dead end. Those should be removed. The third issue there's still, I believe, there's a parking issue on a Park Lane between Muncie Boulevard, between Maple Avenue and Sunrise Drive on the west side. There's a synagogue there. There's cars always parked on the west side of the street. It's very hard for traffic to pass through there. It's also a route of a Transport of Rockland bus. Loop 1 goes through that area. on that street, and there's a lot of traffic. It's very hard to get around. Sometimes there's cars parked around the corner and up the hill, and especially now with the snow, it makes it even more narrow. 2 vehicles cannot pass. At one time, there were no parking signs on the west side of Park Lane between Maple Avenue and Sunrise Drive. They were taken down. Also, there's also no parking signs on Park Lane a little bit south of Sunrise Drive. And even though there's no parking signs there, a lot of times there's a lot of cars also parked there where the no parking signs are. Thank you.
Thank you. Come right up.
Good morning. I'm Cassandra Edwards. I'm Executive Director of Advocating for Change. You need my address too? 6 Spring Valley Common, George, Spring Valley, New York. I'm coming up, I'll start off with saying that I thank the town of Ramapo for always taking the lead of picking up where other municipalities dropped the ball in regard to our young people. I thank you, and I actually met with Michelle January 1st to be exact, in regard to, and prior to that I met with Councilwoman Charles, in regard to just the need of us collaborating more when it comes to the lack of services in the village of Spring Valley. And because of the politics and everything else going on, the common denominator is our children are still suffering because there is no true line of communication. And with the politics of things overall, it prevents us from being effective. And I had put a request to do my actually 14th year annual movie nights at the Cultural Arts Center. Now, the first thing I'll say was disheartening because there's no equipment at the Cultural Arts Center to actually do movies. So as an organization that doesn't have a budget, that doesn't have resources, it was trying to figure out how do I get a monitor, how do I get speakers in order to show movies to kids. It turns out that I can't use the theater because I don't have a budget to be able to rent that kind of equipment. So the Spring Valley Police Department actually gave me a monitor, and not a monitor, but a projector, and the different equipment that I needed to use the community center. I will say for the record that I opened this up, and I did a press release and made it open to the public, and not one elected official outside of David Carlucci has taken any time out to actually even come and see what it is we're doing at the Cultural Arts Center. I think that's disheartening. The other part of it is I put a plea out to all of you to figure out what can we do in order to help the needs of our children. We have a beautiful building there that has great potential to be able to do great things. And it's really sad that a person such as myself, with all the work that I do, that I have to go and beg at different entities and different folks to do the work. And if they don't like my personality, they don't help me. If I don't say something that they like, I piss them off, then they just shut me off. So I think on a larger scale, I put a plea out to the town of Ramapo, and I have to say Christopher St. Lawrence, and you know, everybody else has their issues, but at the end of the day, I can walk in your office at any point and put a plea out to the need of my community. And when I say community, I have a larger massive community, which is Rockland County, but my primary focus has always been Spring Valley. You know, movie night is going on 14 years, and I literally have to fight to beg people to be able to sponsor a movie night for children. And because they don't like my personality or because they don't like me, this year I haven't had resources to be able to even finish my movie nights. I will finish them regardless, but the whole point is I put a plea out to the town of Ramapo for us to get past the personalities and figure out how can you take a leadership role being housed within the village of Spring Valley and figure out how we can bring more resources and programs to benefit the children of our village. And we're at the beginning of the year. I've always made a plea, and my MO was pretty consistent with my investment. But I find it disheartening that on an average Friday evening, for the record, I have anywhere between 25 to 30 kids at the Cultural Arts Center. And the goal is so that they can see leadership there, that they can see George is doing a wonderful job with being diligent with being there for me. Bernard Charles, when we first got there, I had the opportunity to be on the phone with him with just logistics. We don't even have extension cords at the Cultural Arts Center. So my plea to you is if you can strategically figure out a way that we can start implementing programs, not at the agenda of a political agenda. I need to say it for the record, and look, I'm just blunt with it. Let us really be truly invested in the best interests of our children so that in the village of Spring Valley, we can get programs up and running. And that is my plea to all of you. Again, I've been around a long time. Operationally, I'm just learning how to do it the right way as far as organizationally. But I can't do it by myself. So, thank you.
Cassandra. Thank you. Motion to close the public participation? Moved by Councilwoman Charles, second by Councilman Ullman. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, carries unanimously. I just want to clarify something that whatever the situation is in Spring Valley with their budget or their ability to fund programs has not stopped this town board and this town and Michelle Antosca and our department from going into Spring Valley and providing those services. I just want to remind that when the Spring Valley pool wasn't open for 4 years because the village said they didn't have any money to spend on that, this town board spent over $700,000 to put in the pool and to get that pool up and running. And we staff it with lifeguards all year long. We charge no fee. All of our other pools, we charge a fee for people to utilize it. We charge no fee for the residents of Spring Valley. We get over 10,000 seniors and youth there swimming in that pool every year. And we do that, and the village has no money, they say, or they certainly weren't going to do that. And so this town board stepped in and did that. Recently, the state was going to be running a program at Pomona Middle School. The state was going to pay for after-school program, and then the parents said that these kids were too tired to have that extended hour of time, and they closed that program. In the meantime, Michelle Antosca and Director of Parks and Recreation, we've been running a program at Limekiln Elementary School working with Principal Grant, and we have, how many kids do we have there now? Over 70 kids that are there every day after school utilizing that. We pay for that out of town funds and in order to do that. You know, I can go on with our police, whether it's Adopt a Cop or DARE or all the various programs or even our new initiative with the PAL. I mean, this town board is out there doing it. And the Cultural Arts Center, to begin with, was purchased by this town board, and we put millions of dollars in for cleaning that old XXX theater that was closed down and dilapidated and used as an economic engine in the village of Spring Valley on Main Street. Unfortunately, we were vandalized and our projector was stolen there, but we're working on what we can do to have a projector there. But we have been stepping in and filling the void continuously for whatever village or whatever area when it comes to our youth. And I want to thank you, Cassandra, for your efforts for the youth. You do a great job, and I appreciate the collaboration as we continue forward. Thank you, Cassandra.
I'd like to say also, too, Michelle has done a great job providing all the services at the Cultural Arts Center since we have revitalized it and brought life back into the center. And we've had many programs there since that time. And I don't believe that we've had any issues at all. A great deal of programs have come through there. I know that if there's something that a organization needs, normally they would send Ms. Antosca a list to say, this is what we require if in fact that organization doesn't have the funds or there's or they need assistance. And I do not believe that that was the case because Michelle has done a fantastic job of accommodating every single organization that we've had in that center. We look forward to continuing whatever groups who want to come and use the center, no matter whether they have the money or not. I would say that they should supply you with a list of what they require. At that point, you can decide with them whether or not we can accommodate them. And if we can't, they're always welcome to find another facility. There's a wonderful facility right across from us at the Darden Center. That's the Village of Spring Valley. And they work with us very well when we have to piggyback on each other. So I think it's just a matter of submitting a request of equipment, and therefore the children can continue their programs.
Absolutely.
So I thank Michelle for all she's done, and I'm sure in the future, if she could make a note that if there's another organization that would like to do anything, please ask them what equipment they require, and I'm sure that that program will continue successfully, because as the supervisor said, we're here for the community, and we do everything we can to ensure that the programs continue, because that's what the town does.
Absolutely. Chief, before we go into executive session, we have a short agenda here.
Yes, sir.
There's just a few items, and since the public's here, rather than making them wait, we'll just go through this agenda. For the town attorney, approval of the agreements, it's 211, the Mesa service is off the agenda for today, and so Mike, I'll let you pick up from there. And Michael, we all want to give you a big mazel tov on that you're a new grandfather.
Baby's name. Very nice. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. The first agreement is continuation of the agreement we've had for a number of years with Bryan Hospital to provide an employee assistance program for all non-police employees.
Moved by
Charles.
Councilwoman Charles, second by Councilman Ullman. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, carries unanimously.
Brian Nugent of the law firm of Fairclough McCartney has been working on an as-needed basis with the police department for labor relations matters. This resolution continues that agreement for another year.
Moved by Councilman Friedman, seconded by Councilwoman Charles. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, carries unanimously.
Our planning consultant, Frederick P. Clark Associates, was asked to submit a proposal for a traffic study involving Naval Drive, Suzanne Drive, and Francis Place, and perhaps Ida Road and Ronald Drive. This resolution accepts that proposal.
One second.
All right, we'll table that to the next meeting. Okay?
And finally, we have a tax assured matter. Mr. Shedler's here to discuss it if the board wishes. This is for Rose Tower property in Valley's apartment. This would deal with tax years 2010 to 2015 and involves a total tax refund of town taxes of $758.92.
And you're recommending that? Okay. Moved by Councilwoman Charles, seconded by Councilman Ullman. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, carries unanimously. And that covers tax years 2010, 11, 11 and 12, and 12 and 13. A total of $758.92. Thank you. Okay. Next on the agenda is the authorization for 2 park and recreation employees to attend a ACA conference in Atlantic City, New Jersey, March 16, 17, 18, and 19. Happy St. Patrick's Day. Moved by Councilman Charles, second by Councilman Ullman. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, carries unanimously. The next item on the agenda is the authorization for park and recreation employees to attend the Fitness Symposium in New York City, March 19th through 22nd. Moved by Councilman Charles, seconded by Supervisor St. Lawrence. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, carries unanimously. The next item on the agenda is the acceptance of the bid for the various trips. Moved by Councilman Charles, second by Supervisor St. Lawrence. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, carries unanimously. Acceptance of the bid for special events. Moved by Councilman Charles, second by Supervisor St. Lawrence. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, carries unanimously. Acceptance of proposal emergency repair for the heating system in the police department. Moved by Councilwoman Charles, seconded by Supervisor St. Lawrence. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, carries unanimously. That's all the present business with the public. We motion to go into executive session by Councilwoman Charles, second by Supervisor St. Lawrence. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, carries unanimously. Okay, we are in executive session.